Starting out this video, I just want to show some of the things that are new to Boxcutter 706. The show wire toggle has been removed. We're working on a better solution, but in the meantime you will just have to use the one built into Blender. One of the new functions is Tthick, so if you cut in a box and you press T, you can actually take away the thickness, allowing you to cut panels. In fact, it doesn't look like we can start boxes with that initially set up. Another new addition is if you press A, there will be a make box, which is a box you can use to just quickly create shapes to get started with. The circle has also had some improvements. If you click on circle, you'll notice that it automatically jumps over to center draw. Control left click to repeat has also been improved. If you hold shift, you will get the shape, allowing you to adjust it after the fact. Make sure that you select the main shape that you're cutting into afterwards, since this one is selected. You can also make it not active by choosing this one. Lazercut has also seen some improvements. For example, if you are drawing a box and you extrude and you decide, hey, I want a laser cut, you can bring it back and make a really narrow cut, or you can bring it all the way back and do a laser cut. So that's almost one of the easiest ways to laser cut, is to just bring it back and just let it go. Now, in the event that laser cut doesn't work, we also added a tweak threshold, so that way you'll be able to set the tweak threshold to help you with laser cut. This is something connected to the preferences that I'll go into more later. But now you can laser cut even easier. Now if you do a repeat cut, you can hold shift and now get that shape back so that you can perfect it later. In fact, in that case, we did not get a good repeat. There we go. We select this again. There we go. So now you can drop a shape, repeat it, and actually perfect it, and then go back and repeat again. So the focus of this update was mainly repairing some of the old behaviors. However, I just could not let this update make it out the door without Tthick. There's also a lot of additional bug fixes and behavioral improvements that you'll be finding under the hood that I'm sure I'm glossing over. But for the most part, that is what you can expect. In addition, you also have make circles. So we can draw a circle, press A, and make circles. And so this comes in real handy for hard surface design when it comes to creating a shape that you want to then perfect and modify later, like I'm using here in the newest hard ops. We'll select its face, hide it, and make a very specific shape and cut that in using hard ops. So now we are working on the functions that will become part of our link, but you should have more than enough to keep you entertained with this introduction to Boxcutter. Alright, before we begin, I wanted to take a moment to just discuss how I have Blender set up so that we're all on the same page. So from this screen, we're going to leave this on the defaults, leave it on select with left. We're going to change this to search though, because playing with the space bars is kind of crazy, and we'll go ahead and save that and just click into the view. Another thing I want to do is go in edit mode. I'll press 3 to go in face mode, and we're just going to turn on the center dot for faces. Just a big fan of those. Next thing I'm going to do is go into user preferences, and under themes we'll go down to 3D view, and we're just going to raise the vertex size a little bit, maybe even a face dot size a couple of notches. We'll jump this over to the graph editor, or maybe it's the node editor, and we already have our noodle curving at 0, which is something I've just gotten used to. We'll go back to 3D view, and let's actually subdivide this cube and turn on wireframe. And this is what we're going to see whenever we look at wires. So we want to go ahead and change that active object. Let's put in the realm of blue. Been getting into blue lately. Something dark. So whenever we look at our selected object, we'll be able to see our wires. And from there, we'll save our preferences. But before that, I want to go under add-ons and type in 9 and enable hard ops. Go ahead and turn on my favorite options. We'll go to box, search for box, locate Boxcutter. We'll enable it. And the first thing we'll notice here is that there's been some updates to the preferences. So the preferences are slowly coming back, and you now have the ability to change your hotkey. But these settings are also part of the behavior panel in Boxcutter, so we'll be getting to that later. So from here, we're just going to save preferences. I'm just going to take this cube and delete it, and we're just going to put a different cube in here. And I'm just going to press Shift H to hide the light and the camera. And we're just going to choose to save startup file right here. In fact, we want to turn off the wireframe and then save our startup file so we're in a regular looking scene. And that's it. So I mean, now that this scene is set up, I'll close Blender. I'll middle mouse click it on my taskbar to open up another copy. And of course for Windows it'll put Blender where I don't want it, but we now have our starting setup. So if we get in here and we start box cutting and we want to see what's going on here, we can just go up here to overlays, turn on wireframe, and see what's going on. In fact, to really make this file exactly what we want to right click and choose flip to bottom. Just kind of weird having all this stuff up top. Down at the bottom it just makes a little more sense. So I will go ahead and save startup file, and now we can go ahead and begin. There's a couple of settings I forgot that are worth mentioning. So we'll go back into our user preferences, and under the general tab we want to make sure that we're using all of our GPUs and processor at our disposal. Also, I like to set the multi-sample to 8. If we go under the input tab, there's a tweak threshold here that's actually connected to repeat cut and laser cut. So sometimes raising this value to something like 20 can be a little bit more beneficial if those features in Boxcutter are not working for you, since they are connected to the Blender parameter. With that, we can save settings and actually begin. So I'll just save startup file, and let's get started. Boxcutter 706 Beta Scythe Phase Crane Claw will be out as of the moment you are hearing this, and that's the version that I'm using. So I will save preferences. Let's go ahead and just see what's going on with Boxcutter. So I'll just delete this cube, don't tell the other cubes, and we'll just move this over one Blender unit, press minus, put it on the other side, so we're working on the right side of the X. Since this is 2 Blender units, moving it 1 Blender unit puts it on the other side of the axis. We'll press Ctrl A and apply location, and let's just duplicate this and bring it up. We'll select these 2 edges, press F, put an edge in between, bring this out, bevel it, and from here we'll go ahead and use the Q menu and hard ops to add a little bit of solidify. We're going to tap into edit mode and shift N to make the normals consistent. Kind of a weird hotkey now. We'll press Control tilde, bring up the helper, and apply to solidify so that this is real. And we're just going to just do a little bit of poly modeling here. However, we're going to select this, make the origin to selected. Okay, so also I'm using the default Blender snapping pie menus, and those are just not acceptable. So we did do a port of snapping pies over to 2.8 just to help us out in the meantime. So now I'll press Shift S and origin to selection. So now my origin is here. I'm going to press Alt X, and we're just going to put the bottom at the bottom, and then we'll Control A. Actually, let's apply that, and then Control A, apply location. And so this is our shape so far. And if we Alt X, we can mirror this on the Y. And before we begin, we can clean the mesh up to make it easier to cut in these areas, but really it's not necessary. Actually it is. Let's do it. We'll go in the Q menu and just clean the mesh so that we're down to our simplest mesh. And we'll give it an initial bevel, just kind of break the ice here. And let's press Alt W and begin. So if you bring a red box down, but you bring it back up and you just click, it will activate a Lazercut now. An interesting trick I've learned, and this is probably an accident, is that you can do a whole bunch of cuts on one side and then mirror it to the other side. So we're going to do just that. If you hold Shift when you apply, it will select the shape. The focus of this update was mainly behaviors. Like adding new features is great, but we had some behavioral issues that I felt needed to definitely be addressed going forward in order to make it easier to demonstrate this tool properly, because if there's one thing I'm against is unnecessary clicks. So if you want to see an example of one unnecessary click that's been fixed, is look no further than the circle. We jumped a circle and we're drawing center circles now, guys. It now automatically jumps over to center circle. So this was a big one for me. It was personally driving me crazy. So I have all these mirrors on one side. Check this out. We go over here, we turn on mirror. They instantly pop up on the other side on the next draw. So this is just a way I've kind of gotten used to working. So sometimes I'll just turn that back off and just go back to working like before. Here I am still in circle. I'll just press escape to cancel and jump back to box, and just know that box knows where I left it. Well, not completely. We did experiment with ideas of it remembering exact states, but it was a little bit more of a nuisance than a benefit. So we are still working on fine-tuning some of the behaviors to get things exactly as we want. Also, for context, we call this the behavior panel because it's containing all the behaviors pertaining to the tools and the way that they work. So anytime I talk about the behavior panel, I'm pretty much talking about this area. If you want your mesh to be selected after you draw it and hold Shift, using the Make Active will make that happen, which can be very useful in situations where Blender is treating wire selections as second-rate citizens. I mean, I used to love selecting wires. It used to be so easy. And I'm sure there's a preference I'm missing that is actually causing that. Another thing that I normally do is set up my shading so I'm in a matte cab, also give it random so it just has a little bit more shading going on here. Now, if we wanted to, we could also add a bevel to the mix and shift this mesh into hard mode. Sometimes when I'm using Boxcutter, I will just not use any sort of beveling at all, and it just makes my life easier because I don't have to worry about edge relationships and what the Blender beveling system is going to give me. So let's go under overlays. We're going to turn on wire, and we can actually see what Blender is giving us. So with all these tools we have now working in tandem, let's look at Blue Box. So Blue Box, just great every time, but not perfect. There are still some improvements I feel that can be made to Blue Box. One of them, I was actually wanting to hold up this release to get resolved, but really holding it back any longer would just cause more frustration. And also, I can be a bit of an obsessive slave driver when it comes to getting features and behaviors the way I want. So right here, we cannot make that cut. However, we can use the hard ops function of bool scroll. We'll go here to object scroll and say to ourselves, hey, this is kind of far away. We're going to right click and add it to quick favorites because now it's here. We're just going to scroll and find the boolean that needs to be adjusted because everything's still live because of non-destructive. And we're We also have some plans to improve the system for displaying these and in the wire mode. There's a lot to be desired when it comes to making our way through 2.8 and getting things to behave exactly as we want. But we're getting there. So, you know, in that transition, I also want to mention that wires are gone. The wire toggle is gone, and that's because we are going to have to rethink that idea. It's actually spawned into a larger internal debate on what we should and shouldn't have Boxcutter do, but we are definitely going to get that sorted out. However, if you use hard ops in the Alt-V menu, there is an option for wireframe to hit it there, and then of course you can always just hit it under overlays. So continuing on, we're going to apply the bevel modifier here because we cannot modify this geometry under here with blue box on the main shape because it's actually being dictated by a subshape. So we just one cut. You know what? Maybe even two cut. And now we have a more optimized Boolean setup here compared to just letting Blender solve, which isn't a bad choice, but it does tend to add up on you in the end if you just let it happen. Right here, we want to G, Y, Y, slide this away, G, Z, Z, G, X, X, Y, Y, and we have it just right. But as we move along, you might notice that there's some things that have been improved and some things that have remained unchanged, and that's because, you know, we're still making plans on how we want to deal with them exactly. Like, for example, ngon. Everyone's always asking about ngon, and we definitely have big plans for it. However, we definitely want to make it more than what it was, similar to what we want to do with 3D cut. So it's definitely getting there, but we can only you know, ride people so hard. So right here, I'm just going to draw another cut. However, we're in blue box. I'm going to right click and cancel, and we'll just bring a cut down here, and we'll use control left click to draw another one. However, we also have control left click plus shift to draw it and hold it so that we can put that exactly where we want it. In hard ops, there was also a new array added thanks to AR that is now using the gizmo system. This was something I wanted in the initial hard ops that we're bringing over to 2.8. I also must note that you must right click to cancel when you are done. If you go into another gizmo type during this operation, it will have issues, but this is something that we're also looking forward to resolving, but we believe it may be something going on the Blender side. I'll press K to shift to knife, and we'll just cut that in there to just make it fit nice and snug. And we'll just draw another one over to the mirror side that's not even real, and we'll just cut one there. And it's just a habit of mine to just optimize the geometry that's given to these Boolean meshes, because the more optimized it gets, the more consistently you can continue cutting without any sort of difficulty. So right here, I want to draw a yellow box. So we'll bring down the red, press X to toggle, press B to bevel, and we'll roll this down to 1. And we get something like that. And the interesting thing is, if we were to come in here, do a circle, and just turn on mirror, oh wait, wrong shape was selected. So being blue da ba dee da ba da has its benefits. We'll select this, select the main mesh, press Alt X, and mirror this to the other side. The mirror has also been updated. That was the 2-object mirror I was showing there. We also want to go into modifier stack and just apply the intersect modifier so that way this is the real mesh. And then we'll clean the mesh, and then we'll do origin to geometry, and then we'll Alt X mirror it to the other side using symmetry, And this starts making things get a little weird. In fact, let's try it again. This is symmetry. So we use symmetry, and then let's look at what we have here. And it looks like we also want a weighted normal in the mix. So bevel, weighted normal, and then mirror. But we're not even going to bother putting the mirror at the end. Let's see what we have here. Alright, so there's definitely something strange happening with this mesh. That one puts it on the other side. This one doesn't need to exist. So we'll hold Alt and click that edge to select it. Some of these hotkeys are just really weird. I still am unable to believe I'm even saying them, but I'm pretty adamant about sticking with the defaults. Now right here, I press Shift tilde in edit mode, and it put us in this looking around mode, which is kind of weird. I'll never use that. So under select, we're going to go with select loops, select boundary loop, and we're going to right click that and map it to Shift tilde. And we'll save the press later, but Shift tilde is just my go-to key for selecting boundary loops so I can quickly mark them as sharp, which is just something I do with the boundaries of a selection in the event. In fact, in this case, I think I'm using angle mod, so I don't even have to. But let's go ahead and just lower that. And we want to change this over to bevel. Now, the reason that I'm modeling in this video with the wireframe on the whole time is to just kind of give you guys an idea what kind of geometry we're looking at here, because I get a lot of questions about what does geometry look like, and it's a strange question because I feel that I do go in edit mode quite a bit, and also we're using Boolean, so it probably should look like CAD geometry. However, that doesn't mean that we can't get a fine result. So let's continue on with our wall cutting. So we're just going to draw a box here and bring it in, working ever so slow. And we'll press E to edit the extrude. We can press O to actually edit the offset of the initial plane. So this is something new that's added. So if you have issues with Lazercut, you might want to raise your offset, because the higher your offset, the more of a chance that it will not have an issue. But also holding Shift and then doing a Lazercut will also kind of help you diagnose the issue, which is important. At least to me, I find it being very important that we are able to go in and diagnose what's wrong. Because it's easy to say, hey, there's something wrong here, but what is wrong? That's the true question here. So we're going to choose origin to geometry, and that's going to mess up our mirror. So we'll just remove the mirror, select this mesh, and then Alt X, put it back. And so we're back where we started, and now we can actually just mirror this in the middle. Use the same trick as before to select a boundary loop. Let's look at it in local mode. It looks fine. Select tilde for selecting that boundary loop again. And this time we will bring this forward. And so this isn't so much a tutorial as much as me just showing what Boxcutter is in its current state as of this update. Just to kind of give you guys a update on what's going on. Also to provide some new stuff to make to the people who are actually following the stuff and making stuff. It's been great actually seeing everyone's trip to Box City, everyone who tweets me these things. I'm eternally grateful for everyone who retweets these products and helps keep the legend alive. So we'll extrude this out. We'll press B because having that big rounded bevel will just look a little tacky. And we'll go ahead and set that up. And so you get the idea here. Boxcutter is getting stronger and stronger. And when ngon hits, no one will believe what it has become. So we'll bring this down. Not so low though. Just enough to grab the circle and isolate it. And let's lower to B weight. In that case, I accidentally C-sharpened it, which is fine because this this dynamic nature is only a novelty to me. I probably will not be going back and tweaking. Right there I had an error because I was drawing off of the mesh that was selected. Not to just gloss over an error. So from here, we can actually Alt-X. And I would say let's mirror this on the roof. But it looks like it's not going to let us. So let's just get in here and just make something. So I'm going to draw a box. I'm going to press escape because I did not want a bevel box. In this case, I just want a regular box. And I don't even want that. I want to press A and use the brand new make box. And now we have a make box. And we'll just go in here and just do a few quick edits. We'll go in edit mode, bevel that edge, draw a box back, bevel that one out of here, just cut a few little snips in here, and we're just making a a light for the roof. Nothing serious, just a little quick something. And we could even go in and K fix that because that's an option. So now we can work on integrating this better into this area. And we'll select both these pieces, Alt-X, mirror it to the other side. And we'll push that to the back. And there we go, that's our start. I will also bring in a path. And we'll Shift S, snap cursor to selected, Shift A, add a circle. I'm going to move the circle over, tab into edit mode, and just move this over and Shift R to repeat that. With these circles selected and this curve selected, we're going to press Q and use curve taper. And now we have this curve that's using this mesh. And we're just going to place this up top. So if you think Boxcutter can only make boxes, then you're missing out on a lot there, because you can get quite far with just a box. Some would say that boxes are the things that make up atoms. So from here, we're going to go to convert to, and we're going to convert it to a mesh, but we're going to right click it and add to quick favorites. And from quick favorites, we're going to convert this to a mesh. And now that we have a mesh, let's look at this from the front. We'll just angle our view. We also want to go in our preferences and just turn off auto perspective. I do not like that option so much. And we're going to add an option for auto ortho in response. We'll press K and cut all this. The previous blue box used to make the selection as well, so just know that it's in the cards. I've been bringing up all this stuff, just driving Proxy crazy. And so we'll double tap E, Alt S, and then we'll S sharpen, and then we'll Alt X. Oh, we have overlays off. We'll Alt X and then put this on the other side. We'll press 1 for vertice mode. Press B for box select. We'll press Z, go into wireframe. B for box select for rails this time. Go back to solid. And we'll mirror that again. And we're getting farther and farther, guys. So right here, I'm going to draw a box, but we're going to press A and get a make box. But right now we don't have it able to allow us to extrude the opposite direction. So That's alright. I'm all about rolling with the punches. This right here has to go. I'm sorry you guys had to see that. Right here, we'll Control B, bevel this. We'll also jump it into a C# state. And we'll just cut this out. And Lazercut. Lazercut. Did somebody say Lazercut? Alt X. Push it to the other side. And from here, we'll go here, select this. We'll cut up inside of it. Press V for array. We do plan on adding the ability for users to adjust their hotkeys down the road once we get these systems in place. Right here, I'm just going to draw a box, but we're going to press K. K is a lighter box. In fact, let's try that again. Oh, it's real. Somehow we shifted into destructive mode. I'll have to keep an eye on that. So we'll go to K. Push this back, and we have to go in here manually, clean this stuff up. We could use mesh clean, but it's such a heavy-handed approach for something that's a very specific problem. But these edges cannot stand. And if we look at our stack, we still have most of our other booleans in place that actually cut the destructive stuff in around the areas that we wanted to respect. That out. In fact, let's do that again. So right here is an example of offset not working. So we press B, and we see that this cut failed. But if we press O, it's still having problems. Let's hold shift. Let's shift into that. Let's keep it. Let's see why this is happening. Sheesh, the stack is heavy. I bet it will work if we just move it away from the mirror. No, if we just move it an inch or so. Look. Actually, that is not the boolean we were looking for. What can I say? I'm a man who loves to test his mirror just to see what the mirror's offering today, because every time I update Blender, it either has a new gift or a new rule. Either one is fine with me, but I do miss some of the classic behaviors. However, I was able to find hidden wire right here. So I've been looking for that in the end panel, and yeah, it was driving me nuts. So I'm so glad I actually have that back. So continuing on, we're still cutting destructive. And these parts that we're cutting will probably never be seen, but we're almost there. So, you know, one more cut that would be nice would be right here. Here, we'll bring it down, press B, roll the wheel a couple of times, and we'll move our view. I think if I hover my mouse over this corner when I press G, I can actually move it correctly. We do want to have origin changing capabilities. However, we do got to find a way to do all of that stuff and keep it organic in the workflow. So now we have this cut out. So what are you going to do with it? I hear the crowd ask. Well, first, we'll lower that B width. Just cut a little trench out there. Maybe right here. this, I'm just going to select this shape whenever Blender decides that I truly want that cutter. I'll just hold Alt and just do it that way. That's so classic, I never do it. Array, plus, plus, plus. We'll just pull that out. So we don't yet have the ability to add multiple ones, but that will be coming as well. You know how it goes with us. First there's a initial implementation, and then it's just crazy enhancements until we move on to the next idea. So right here, I had the wrong selection. I want to select this, press K, and let's just fix that edge work. Right here, fix that edge work. And that'll do. So if we turn off this thing and we look at what we have here, this is what we built. I mean, we're only 30 minutes into the video. 30 minutes, sheesh. These videos are getting long. I was supposed to be doing just a quick talk about Boxcutter. But let's take everything on slices. Let's take everything that's in the view right now, and we're just going to move it to collection. But we're going to take camera, move it into a new collection called stuff. Not like that. Stuff. I need to modify my keyboard where I can't ever hit caps lock because I never ever hit caps lock. This light can just go. It's not even a cool light. It's one of those point lights, you know. Slices is empty, and we have everything in one collection that we'll call part. And we'll use Control S, and I'll just call this part. So this is the part that we made. So to, you know, end this video nicely, we'll Shift A, add a collection instance of part, and press Alt G to put it back in the center. We'll do GY, let's see, GY2, and that'll work. So we'll do Shift D, Y2, enter, and if we do Shift R, it will duplicate it and offset it by 2. So that'll get us started there. However, we do not want all of this in the same collection. So we'll press M. We'll put this in a new collection called parts with the S at the end, you know. Sorry, the song I'm listening to also had some people start doing that. So do we still have our selection? Yes. So we'll Shift D, X for, wait, is it X? Oh, we didn't give it a standard measurement. Weird. Well, that's all right. Visually, we can also do this. Actually, we're done. And then we're back to our classic tricks of Shift D, Y, 2, minus, and so now we have our corridor made. Just a little quick corridor. Of course, we need a little bit more variation going on in here. This is insanity. You know, Star Fox ready for takeoff. You know, sorry, still thinking about Smash Bros. So from here, I'm gonna press B, select this. Let's try it again. I'll press A to deselect. I'll press Alt A to deselect because this is 2.8, guys. We'll press G. Then I'll press Shift D after canceling that G to actually duplicate what I saw move. And we'll just bring that out, rotate it 90, and we'll just put it at the end here, just so we're not looking out into nothing. There we go. So this is kind of what I was wanting to make in a video, just something very quick, without a whole lot of effort, in order to show you guys what you can be doing with Boxcutter. I see a lot of people going to Box City, so I feel that now it's time for me to start dropping some challenge assets on y'all, showing more challenging uses of Boxcutter in order to get y'all to push it to the max. So Box City is just level 1, but what's in Box City? Box Corridor would be level 2. So next I should be coming back with a gun or a robot or something more hard surface, more engaging to you, the users. But continuing on, let's press 1. Let's just look at this piece. piece by itself. We'll select everything and select one thing. So kind of weird in Blender, I select everything with A and then I select one thing to have an active selection. Even without being able to see what's going on, I can just tell. We'll use Control L, link the materials for a moment. And we're just gonna adjust our roughness. Maybe raise the specular. Let's see what we got here. No one can ever complain about having something so smooth. But without the weighted normal on the end, it's gonna look a little bad. So the weighted normal is definitely one of my best friends now that I'm over here in 2.8, and C# actually adds it. But if you recall, earlier in the video, I did not use C#. I actually shifted everything manually. So this thing, we want to put it below, above the bevel, and then we'll put a weighted normal on it without changing any parameters. And on this one, the same situation, except the mirror got ahead of itself. So let's continue. So now we have this piece. In fact, if I turn off overlays, we don't have to move things around to know it's selected. Let's make this a little bit darker, a little bit rougher, and let's turn off the lines. So material cut is also another big thing that was a large part of Boxcutter that should be coming back soon. These are all things that are discussed heavily and missed. We definitely want to do a better job with the HardOps integration, make it more automatic and under the hood, so that way people aren't even aware that the link is there. It'll just utilize it, is our hope. From here, we'll go ahead and change this to its own material by clicking the little number. And let's put a little bit of roughness on it. And we'll select these pipes, select this piece, Control L, link their material, and just continuing on. And we don't have any viewport flare yet because I'm trying to keep the speed under control. I am starting to notice that I'm capable of making both Blender and my computer bleed, and I don't like crashes. So if I find a workflow that doesn't result in crashes, I'm there. So we'll hold Control, click to put that one here, and it looks like that solution did not work out. So if we turn on wire, we can actually see why that happened. And the interesting thing is, while we're in destructive, we just hold shift while we do it. This is a non-destructive cut, and it looks like it actually worked out that time. But usually at the end when I'm doing this sort of stuff, that's when all bets are off. I'm no longer so serious about keeping the mesh absolute. But holding shift is kind of a guided mode that will let you step through it. But it does select the mesh afterwards if that is selected in your properties. So now we want to adjust the color for this thing as a whole. Maybe bring it down a little bit. And let's turn off these wireframes. Also receiving a lot of calls. A lot of messages. People always like to message me when I'm in the middle of recording content. Just know that if you write me while I'm recording, asking me am I recording, I will probably unfriend you. That's not how you get a shout out. So we'll just move this down the row. I'm not saying I would unfriend anyone who messaged me, but if you're messaging me while I'm recording for the purposes of being an annoyance, yeah, probably put you on a special list. Right here, we have this, here, let's go to 1. So this is part of every collection. We want to put this in stuff. And then when we activate layer 2, it's not there anymore. And this is kind of what we have so far, just a real quick room. So I was talking with someone recently, and they were saying, you know, I'm gonna sign up to your Patreon to learn how to render better results. And I was surprised by the response because, you know, firstly, I don't even cover that stuff over there. I'm just giving away assets. But the other thing is, what's going on here? Let's go to layer 1. Let's talk to this. Left click, drag. There we go. A little bit of insanity there for a moment, but I don't know what that lag was. But yeah, the results are in the videos. I mean, I always go through and just add really basic stuff, really basic materials, just playing with reflectance and color values. So, you know, there's no rocket science to it. So, and the people who I comment and say, hey, you know, you should at least try to end your story with a nice render result. That's what I mean. Nothing special. I mean, once you press this button, things are going to change. Everything's going to change. And then we put in a reflection cube. Oh god, we're going to put that on the stuff layer. And we're going to shift add a radiance volume, and we're going to move that to the stuff layer because that will definitely crash Blender. Let's just scale it up and get in our tunnel and see what we got here. I'm going to press Control Alt Numpad 0 to focus my camera. So the EVHQ, I'm starting to become more and more a fan of that setting. I will work on these scenes and just kind of goof off for a bit, just zone out and cut. Not like today's video where I'm not cutting nearly as hard as I should be cutting. Let's enable the camera. And from here, turn on the PP and the Q options. And under camera, let's lower the focal amount, and then bring the camera in. And for the depth of field, we want to focus on this part. We'll focus on that part. And we'll just change this to 2. If we turn on depth of field, we'll see nothing. But we go here and we lower our f-stop just enough, and we have something nice happening. I really like the depth of field in Eevee. Eevee's still a little rough around the edges, but the more and more I use it, the more familiar I'm becoming with it, and more of a fan I am of having set. I wonder if you can put this on 800. Okay, you can. So something like that, and then let's raise the f-stop, something like that, and then these lights, we should turn down the lights. Maybe just something like that. That way we can actually put some area lights in here. This one is probably going to be the one that kills us, or Blender. But if it doesn't, thank you, Blender. And we also want to make sure that scene lights is on. And we'll use Q, and this, or right click, we'll use right click, and right here is the size, or this energy. I like that. Let's add it to our quick favorites so we can bring it up right here under Q and lower our energy. So we definitely want to expand on the idea of the quick favorites idea. You know, I didn't want to move our menu completely out of it. I think we can work together. I think we can enhance it and make it even better. So that's something that I do look forward to. You know, the first step was definitely getting it to where we are now, where they're at least working together, because you know, users were asking about it, and I just didn't want to let go of the Q menu. I feel like it's part of our history. So we go back into camera view and we look at this, and you know, this would actually probably look better. Let's get out of overlays. I just realized, what am I doing? What am I doing, guys? I could right click this. First, let's take this and put it with the light, because that makes sense. We'll right click this, lower the size, and then we'll duplicate it and put it. Here, let's move this over. Let's see, where do we want this pointed? It's like an army of lights that we're pointing around. So this is what we have so far. And I haven't even turned on bloom yet, because bloom's a easy one. Bloom's too easy, you guys. You know, don't blow it so early. Let's actually duplicate. Do I have the light or do I not? I did. Do I have the light? Yes. Let's move that forward. Let's go in here and just start applying some booleans. Otherwise, we'll never be free. And we'll just move this over. And we'll turn off overlays, grab this light, and just move it over. And have something going on here. And this is our result. So I'm going to save this file. I'm going to save this file, and I'm going to go in and open up one of my previous files. Let's see, promise box. There it is. I like this volume cube that we made in a previous video. And we'll just go in tut part and paste in that cube. And we'll move that to parts so that it's definitely isolated. I'm just going to put this in the back. Just been getting used to inviting fog into scenes lately. It's almost like adding in a radiance volume. And let's turn on volumetric. And now let's look at our corridor. Oh no, we're gonna die! That is actually very crazy though. Like, Eevee just surprises me every time. Like, look at this. Like, will you? Like, oh my god. That's what happens when you get to Box C. You just get hit by a humongous cloud of smoke. So let's go in here and look at our material. You know, the weird thing about Blender is whenever you paste stuff in, it's not selected. Now it's selected. And let's scale the cube in. It looks cool, being foggy on the outside too. But maybe we can get in here under volume. In fact, we'll have it continuing closer to the front, and we want to make it just a little darker. And also under volumetric, I like to mess with my start distance of where it starts coming from. And we want to turn on volumetric shadows. Let's turn off overlays. And finally, let's hit bloom. So one thing I don't really expect out of Eevee right now is dazzling renders. I mean, I could see them getting some very nice results, but I've been rendering a lot with it lately, and I think it's the lack of aliasing that really helps it delineate itself from cycles, because cycles was just a great render engine. Just took a little bit, but it was great. So under my color settings, I'm just going to end this video by setting it to maybe not very high contrast, maybe medium high contrast. You know, it's a medium high contrast type of day. We'll lower our exposure, raise our gamma. Classic Josh Crockett right there. And let's go back to our camera. Just lower our depth of field just enough. We don't want it to even be a thing. Just something that happens to be there. So with that, I will go ahead and wrap up this video. But I just wanted to show you guys a couple of things that are new in Boxcutter. There's a few things that I forgot to mention. I didn't get to show you how make circle is a thing now, or how to fix Lazercut. But I did get to show you the important things, which is how to fix things, how to diagnose things, how to deal with your offset, which is important, and also what the tweak threshold is for in relationship with the Lazercut. So with that, we'll go ahead and end this video, and I'll see you guys next time. To really end this video properly, let's set up a render. So I'm going to have this render for 128 samples, and we're just going to hit F12. Why is this a new window? Whoever wanted a new window out of this? And it's stuck. Can't, oh, there we go, got it. But that's weird. And our render time was 12 seconds. But if we look at this, there's just something missing. I just don't know what it is. In fact, let's change our workspace over to cycles, just see what it looks like. This is probably where the crash is going to come in. Oh, CPU. Let's change that to GPU. And we'll just leave that sitting there. Just Blender choking out a GTX 1080 Ti and a GTX 2080 Ti. But these are the reasons that I have to leave you behind, Cycles. I just can't wait for you to churn dust anymore. Now I can end this video. In fact, let's jump back out of render mode. We jump back into Eevee, change our light to something else, and it really isn't so bad after all. So I'm quite optimistic for what Eevee will become. Also, these lights are dull and dead and need more light. There we go. And then we can go under here and gotta change back to Eevee. There we go. Now we have options. Let's just lower that bloom. And compared to what I just saw in Eevee, this result now feels 10 times better. So now I'll end this video, and I'll see you guys next time.